Okay, I'm just going to show you this. This is a project that I did about 7 years ago, and it's a very easy, inexpensive project to do. Anybody can do it. So I thought I'd just quick explain it. It looks great once the grapes get fully leafed out and the grapes start hanging out over the edge here. And I'll show you that later on in late summer how that looks, but it's easier to show you how it was done when there aren't as many leaves on it. This is a grape arbor, and it's made with red cedar. And red cedar here in Wisconsin and in most eastern states is considered to be a scrub tree. Most people don't want to have it. They spend a lot of time cutting it out of their trees. The highway department has to cut it out of the ditches. They don't like it. And so even if you don't have a lot of land, if you're driving down the road and you see a field that's being taken over by red cedars, a lot of times if you go in and ask the farmer or the person who owns that field if you can go out there and clean it up, a lot of times they'll say sure, because they don't like it. And a lot of times the highway department may even cut them down and give them to you, because they have to dispose of these things when they brush the sides of the highway. So a lot of times if you say, I like these things cut up into 8-foot lengths, they'll cut it up and they'll just leave it, and they'll say, as long as you come within X number of days, we'll let you get them. And then you just make sure you come in that amount of time. Be polite. But anyway, it's pretty easy to get, especially in the eastern part of the United States. It's pretty easy to get your hands on red cedar. And what I did was I just took, this cost me less than $10 altogether to make. I sunk 6 cedar trees into, or cedar logs, in 8-foot long cedar logs into concrete. And 2 bags of concrete cost me less than $4 for the 2 bags together. And then I took and I just, after they set and dried for, well, it was probably close to a week, because once I probably went and started another project, but then you just at least 24 hours let that concrete dry. I came in and I just kind of screwed in cross pieces here and all the way around, and then just wove, and I'll kind of climb in here. Whoops, let me not step on my hostas. And then I just kind of wove the cedar branches up and through. And again, just drilled and put them in. Now, if you would rather nail, that's fine. I just have a nice handy dandy DeWalt battery operated drill, and it's easier for me to do that over my head than it is for me to nail over my head. So that's the way I did it. But if nailing works for you, you can do it that way. But anyway, I just anchored them on to, wove them through until they reached the other side, and then I drilled and anchored them on. And then I planted a grape vine on every other post, and I was going for looks. I have a grape arbor where I actually raise grapes for food. So at the time I was going for kind of a more of a look, so I planted them by color. So I have a blue, a red, and a green, and so when they're up in there, they kind of all hang down together. I get the 3 different grape colors hanging down together. And there I bought table grapes instead of wine grapes or anything. I like the sweetness of them, and then when we're all just sitting here, we can sit here and just reach up and grab a bunch of grapes and sit down and eat them. Well, that's the way it stayed for about 3 years. It takes about 3 years for grapes to come to fruit, for the vines to start fruiting, but once they do, they can fruit for hundreds of years. Well, not hundreds, but probably close to 100 years they can fruit if they're well taken care of. And so about 3 years in, I had a friend call up and said he was making a patio with the sandstone. Sandstone is, you can pick up truckloads of it for like $3, but he anyway had a truckload, or he had some sandstone left, and he wanted to know if I wanted it for free, and I said, oh sure, I can think of something to do with it. Well, it ended up being an entire truckload, so this was one of the places I put it down, and I just kind of dug it in and chipped it so that they kind of fit together in here. And then I planted obviously some hostas around there just to try to make it look a little bit more contained. Let me back up so you can see the whole thing again. And put some chairs, and we like to sit out here, especially in the late summer. This whole place will be coated with leaves, and it's much more shaded, and we'll sit out here. Friends and me will sit out here and talk and have a couple beers. It's just a nice place. It's right here by the back driveway, so I'm standing on the back driveway. There it is. So people come up and we'll just come out here and sit and talk, and I enjoy it. And between these 3 grapevines at this point, 7 years in, I make more than enough grape juice and have more than enough table grapes for me. Now, of course, I drink a lot of wine and make a lot of wine, so it's not enough for winemaking. That's what my other arbor is for, but and that's a much more, that's not for looks. That one's to get the most amount of grapes you can. This will still give you a good amount of grapes, but keeping your grapes trimmed up is the best way. The more sunlight that gets in there, the more grapes you get. But even here, this will just give you, well, last year I'd come out here every other day and pick 2 5-gallon buckets of grapes. And so, you know, and I probably did that 15 times. So 30 5-gallon buckets of grapes came off of just those 3 grapevines. And not every year is a good year for grapes, but most, you know, most years you're going to get plenty of grapes, more grapes than you know what to do with from just these 3 vines. And the whole arbor there cost me less than $10, and if it wasn't for having to let the concrete dry, I could have done it in an afternoon. It really was that simple. And I kind of like the rustic look of it. I'll show it to you later in the summer when the grapes are hanging and you know, it's fully leafed out. It's just easier to show you how it was done, but I'll show it to you with the grapes hanging, and it looks really cool then, and I'll show you that later on. But I thought I'd just show you, very simple, easy project to do. Most of the materials are free, which is simply the red cedar. Red cedar doesn't rot, so it's a good thing to use. Fence posts used to be made out of red cedar. Juniper, white cedar, any of these things are good. White cedar, you're probably not going to find anybody that wants to get rid of it. But red cedar and juniper, sometimes you can just find people that will be like, oh, please come in my field and take it. Or the highway department will, you know, cut it for you. And then, again, a couple bags of concrete and get a box of screws, and you're all set. And for less than $10, you can have a grape arbor. Very easy to do.